Eunice Roberta Hunton Carter was an American lawyer that spearheaded a historic prostitution racketeering investigation. The case and game plan built by Eunice allowed New York District Attorney Thomas Dewey to successfully charge mafioso kingpin Charles Lucky Luciano with compulsory prostitution, which refers to conditions of control over a person who is coerced by another to engage in sexual activity. Eunice was one of New York's first female African-American lawyers and one of the very first prosecutors of color in the U.S. But how exactly did Eunice bring about the demise of the chairman of the board of the five families of New York, aka Lucky Luciano? Let's talk about it. Eunice was a social worker in New York City before Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia nominated her as a prosecutor in women's court, which was a court for the prosecution of women, especially prostitutes. What Carter noticed in that court system was intriguing. Women arrested for prostitution from all over New York City were represented by the same lawyers and bail bondsmen, and those people had relationships with one Charles Lucky Luciano. District Attorney Dewey ordered a raid of numerous brothels and arrested dozens of illegal sex workers, of which many of whom agreed to testify about the mob's link to prostitution. Luciano was charged with pandering. His defense was that he was not directly linked to the brothels and was being railroaded by the prosecution. Dewey, in a dramatic cross-examination of Luciano, asked how the rich mobster could afford an extravagant lifestyle on the $22,500 reported on his tax returns. Carter and Dewey established that prostitutes were required to give up half of their earnings to crime bosses in exchange for legal representation. They established that Luciano was indeed profiting from prostitution, which resulted in Luciano being sentenced to 30 to 50 years in 1936. Eventually, Luciano was released from prison and deported to Italy 11 years later in exchange for his help in preventing problems on the New York City docks during World War II. Luciano instead ran away to Cuba, where he picked up right where he left off, but that's another video within itself. Nonetheless, Luciano's conviction, based on Eunice Carter's discovery, was considered the most successful court action against organized crime in U.S. history. It put a serious dent in the Luciano crime syndicate's illicit activities and political corruption. In 1937, Thomas Dewey, then New York City's district attorney, assigned Carter to head his Special Sessions Bureau involving cases brought in municipal court, where she remained until 1945. Carter thereafter worked as a private attorney, advised the United Nations on women's rights issues, worked for the National Council of Negro Women, and served as a national board member of the YMCA for many years. And that, my friends, is the life of Eunice Roberta Hunton Carter. Subscribe below for upcoming Black History Speaks videos. Share with a young person who you think can take pride in knowing this significant piece of African American history. Thank you for your time. Please subscribe, like, and share. And remember, Black history doesn't have to be forgotten. It's up to us to make Black history speak now.